Starters orders. Here we go again. Yes, the music's lovely, isn't it? It's a bit, I don't know, it's a bit kind of got the magic spooky thing to it, doesn't it? Right, a new bi-generate show today, a new duo today. We thought we'd mix it up with different generations and different combinations from time to time, as you do. Still, I'm Lord Brendan, aka the Time Muddler, or the Time Agent from the Sense3 Saloon, you know that one, representing the dinosaur Doctor Who fans, chewing on as much grass as I can like some intergalactic cow. I shall try not to throw too many cosmic crumbs or time turds or vortex vomit around at, RTD, and endeavour to stay moderate in all my comments. See how long that lasts. I shall try. We are the Sense3 after all, and we have James from Generation Zennial. Oh, where? Niche or what? Is he one of those who refuse to fight for the country or want a dictatorship, I wonder? Did you see that opinion poll? Crazy. Some tasty delights to get our teeth into today for any Whovian with an appetite for more Doctor Who chat. Disney rumours, well, when are there none? Whoniverse not exactly helping the brand is one of my question marks. And any possibility of salvaging the wreckage of the show? Oh yes, reminders. You may have subscribed, you may have reposted, you may be one of our great friends. But they've changed the algorithms on YouTube a little bit, so just make sure you have switched on your notifications and give us a like. The algorithms are playing games at the moment, okay? So, well, he's the new duo for this week, so let's have a look. Let's bring him on. Good to see you. Hello, James.
You're right.
Hey.
There we go.
There we go. Reese Roder. I mean, you do know I'm like Jonathan Ross. I can't do out my R's and W's, so your name gives me hell.
Call me what the hell you like. I don't care.
Oh, no, it was like this in class. If we had to do an assignment called the wide reading assignment, and I thought, oh, God, can we just call it something else? But R's and W's, always my problem. We've got Boomer Doug as well. We've got Lee Smith. We've got Zardoc Spamfish, one of your mates, Farsight, Michael Herbert, Garrett Williams. Hello, everybody. Well, let's start the chat now. Let's start throwing our time turds. Or I know it makes me think of Lee Smith loves it. It's like when I do my Tales of the Turdis with the puppets. Well, by the way, James, there was a Turdis. Look at that one. I found that Turdis somewhere.
I did spot one once at the Hungarian Grand Prix in Budapest.
You found a Turdis?
Yeah.
Did you use it? No.
No, it was the Marshall side of the track. Otherwise, I would have taken a photo next to it.
Well, that's it. Well, yeah, I've been in many Turdises in my time, I tell you. So there you go. Yes, good old Turdis there. But let's, we are Whovians after all. And did you see recently we've had, I mean, there's always loads of events. Did you see the Vengeance on Varus one with the Dwas and Colin Baker, Nicola Bryant, the poor souls have to watch Vengeance on Varus again in front of a whole audience. You'll see here.
Oh, what happened?
Yeah, I mean, look at poor Colin Baker. Look at him there. He's going. I mean, he's dead friendly, as you all know. I helped with a convention in Blackpool and looked after him and his money all day, and he's lovely, absolutely lovely. But gosh, you're like a goldfish in a bowl, aren't you? And how many times can they still talk about the same stories? I'm sure they're enjoying it, but are you one of those who does these events?
I have never gone to one. The singer that I play bass for goes to them all the time. So yeah. I've heard the old thing.
It's what do you want out of them? I mean, what do people in the thread want out of them? I mean, I'm not an autograph man, and I'm not knocking those who do. They cost a bit now, I have to say. They cost a fair bit. I mean, you can see that cover has got an autograph on it, but the autographs don't mean anything to me. I just like talking to the people if you get lucky enough. I mean, I'll always prize sitting next to Colin Baker, and in between him being really nice to the people who signed and paid for stuff, he had lovely little chats with me, and he was just a normal person. Didn't ask him, why did you say this line in, Mark of the Rani? I'm not one of those. I actually just treated him like he was my dad. He was the same age, and it was just nice to talk to him about normal stuff and just be human with him. To me, I felt as though I knew him better than saying, what did you think of Mark of the Rani at the end? And did you get on with Kate O'Mara? I can't do that. I don't know. There's something in me. I can't ask the Doctor Who question.
Yeah, well, I mean, you'd end up being that episode of Father Ted, wouldn't you?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, I don't believe it, man.
I'm haunted.
You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that.
Oh, James, I'm haunted. When I was at Lonleat, when I was, I don't know what it was, 12, 13, people know about it. I did a stream on it, but I was so embarrassed when I was sat there with my dad, who, is a Doctor Who fan, but he's not a geek. And when Patrick Troughton was stood right next to us, and I was kind of didn't know what to say, because I hadn't at that point seen any Patrick Troughtons apart from one, the Crotons. And I said to, when this couple was saying, oh, Patrick, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have married. And they were all this sort. And I was like, oh, God, how embarrassing. This is like too geeky. And I was like struggling with nerves and anxiety about, oh, God, Patrick Troughton must think we're all weirdos. So, I was a teenager. And I just remember that. And that stuck with me, that I can't, if I'm in front of Sylvester McCoy or Colin Baker or one of them, I can't say something nerdy. I have to kind of just say, I don't know. That's just me, everybody. It's just me, my afflictions. So what doesn't draw you to them, James?
I think because I pay more attention to the stories and things. I'm not the type of person to read the credits. I'll rewatch an episode I like it or want to understand better again and again and again, but I won't read the credits. I will occasionally know who wrote it. I'll occasionally know who the main cast are, but I couldn't tell you who was the actor who played. Well, I couldn't have told you Capaldi back in Pompeii. I only knew him from, what was it called, The Thick of It.
Yeah.
Before he became the Doctor. I wouldn't have even clicked that it was him. Like I wouldn't have even noticed that they'd reused the same actor to play the Doctor.
The thing is, we're all of different types of Doctor Who fan. This is the point. I mean, sometimes it does feel like, oh, when I started these streams, I just know what I know about Doctor Who, but there's no way I can go on Mastermind, and there's no way I could go and do a quiz on Doctor Who. I used to be that. There was a point when, can everybody remember those Doctor Who program guides in, I think it was the 80s? There's program guide number 1 was red and one was blue. Program guide number 2. I remember poring over them like an oracle on Doctor Who, but God, the world has changed since then. The Whoniverse is bigger. We'll talk about that later. And even then, to say, well, who was Drax? Who was this? Who was that? I'm trying to remember names. I think, James, is there an age you are, I suppose, as a teenager, when you do remember every little fact, but then as you get older, you go, oh, whatever?
Yeah, really between 10 and 20, but I was more about music. I could tell you producers of records and singers and guitarists and bass players and drummers and things. But when it comes to like storytelling, I'm just interested in the story. I don't really pay that much attention to like who's the producer, because I suppose because I never particularly, or I suppose because I did particularly have an interest in music because my dad was a musician and he taught me to play, and I used to borrow his records when I was a kid. So, and you know what, like old style records and CDs, like proper actual physical products that have all like the little booklets with them, whereas you're sitting down and listening to something and you want something for your hands to do, you want something for your eyes to do, and you end up going through it. And with TV shows, it's demanding your entire your entire attention. Because
Well,
you know,
what about this then? Let's get
go back.
let's get geeky for a second then. Does everyone know? I'm sure you do. 50 years since season 12. 50 years since Tom Baker started. 50 years since Robot, Ark in Space, Sontaran Experiment, Genesis of the Daleks, Revenge of the Cybermen. I mean, oh, now we are the Bigenerates, different generations. You're the weird ones, Enniel. I mean, what a name.
Yeah, managed to land between two generations.
Yeah, we're X, no deal. And we I learned that in Australia, their version of no deal. No deal. And we're Generation X. And you don't quite sound the same about Genesis. You know, Genesis of the Daleks. I mention in every stream. I think people could have bets on what I'm going to say about Genesis of the Daleks. But you were telling me before we started today that there's other better ones.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like coming from, being younger and actually watching it in retrospective rather than as it comes out, and having had it been built up so much in my mind because of like all the classic Who fans saying it's one of the best serials ever. And I watched it and I thought it was pretty good. I didn't think it was anywhere near one of the best ever, but I thought it was pretty good.
It's interesting. I mean,
I'd watch it again.
Yeah. Oh well, that's good. No, look. This is what I mean. We come to it at different levels. Cinnamon, who comes on, he always talks about midnight was his midnight in New Who. Well, I understand it was a good episode, but yeah, it doesn't do anything to inside me, whereas Genesis does. But I think I was 5 or 6, James. So you can appreciate when I saw Davros at the end of episode 1 in that ruin. And Sarah goes,
I can appreciate that because it being like the first time rounds and everything. But
yeah.
Obviously, I was already used to Davros. So it was just like, oh, it's Davros.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very, very, very different.
Conversely, the Sontaran experiment, I thought was absolutely brilliant.
That's interesting. And I'll ask you why in a minute. And I'll ask the thread. The thread are talking about robot and everything at the moment. It's interesting because I've just recorded a review, which will land about next week, everybody. We'll do a little Sontaran experiment review because everyone expects me to do Genesis and some of the Ark in Space. I can save them. We had a good discussion yesterday about this 2-parter. Anyway, what were you going to say, James, about why you liked it?
Well, the old school like original Sontarans just like they looked so much more badass, more intimidating. Like the modern ones are like comedic little Oh,
the blue suit. Sontar. I mean, dear me, they'll be doing a song next series.
Spacesuits, whereas these guys look more like rocks in spacesuits, and like they're just like being the ones and Tyron and all that. I just it really took me. It really like it did the exact opposite of Genesis. It took it took an enemy that I didn't really think, an enemy that I really thought was a little bit naff, and turned it into one of the best.
Yeah. And I find it interesting because you're from a different time period regarding Doctor Who, and so sometimes you've seen it in reverse order and or you've heard about stuff. You see, to me, the moment when Sarah sees him take his helmet off and she goes, Lynx, and of course, being a kid who just seen Lynx in the Time Warrior the year before when John Pertwee was in his last season, this was peak Doctor Who for me. So I went, oh! And I have to say, I was making an argument last night in our review recording that I have to say, Daleks, Cybermen, Yeti, Ice Warriors, I personally find the Sontarans the ones that thrill me the most, but it's only in regards really to the first 2 stories.
Yeah. I mean, I could agree with that. Like the modern Suntarans, they don't really like I said just now. They're almost comedic relief. They're just not that interesting. It's kind of like. Do you know what they were so annoying? I can't remember what they were called.
Well, that's all right. But while you're having a think, Lee Smith was asking, where is it? This is Dartmoor. Dartmoor. I mean, I think I'm not one of those. We were talking about being a geek. I don't want to go to all the Doctor Who locations necessarily. But I think it looks better than the Eye of Orion did in Five Doctors, and I really do quite fancy going there actually because it looks fantastic. Revenge of the Cybermen, Wookiee Hall. I mean, it was a great season, and obviously Tom Baker in 5 stories hit the ground running. To be honest, where did he drop a brick? Where did he make a mistake? Where did he make a wrong turn in season 12? I really do think this Doctor, bang, straight in there. And if you think we've had 8 programs of season 1 with Shooty, we've had Joy to the World, that's 9. We've had him in Church on Ruby Road, that's 10. And we've had him in A Bit of the Giggle. And in 10 stories, I really don't think the 15th Doctor is established. Yet in 5 stories, Tom Baker is it.
Yeah, can't argue with that. What I would say though is like if we are trying to come at this from a adversarial point of view, I think Matt Smith was the Doctor in 1 episode.
Well, let's discuss this, because the whole premise of the Bigenerates is different generations come at different experiences of Doctor Who. Therefore, we sometimes may not agree. Okay, my favourite Doctor, I know it's a toss-up between Pertwee and Tom Baker, but you're calling out here Matt Smith. Where would you say Matt Smith was your Doctor, big time?
Well, that first series 5, was, the whole thing was just such a brilliant story arc, and he became the Doctor immediately. Like the whole, I was doing something very important. Oh yeah, crashing.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Like the way he introduces himself to back then Amelia Pons, and said like she's looking at him expecting to be ridiculed, and he says like, no, do you know what? That must mean it's a very scary crack.
Yeah. He was kind of cute, empathetic, wasn't he? But I always respect Matt Smith with the way he did all the mannerisms and that. He was very clever for a young actor to really take risks, to look. And I have to say, the other thing I will say, and compared to Shooty, who I think is older than Matt Smith at the time, Shooty seems more bothered about the objectification of himself and what he adorns and how good he looks.
And yes, well, age and maturity are not the same thing.
Yeah, and in the end, it's reductive. There's less about him, whereas, yeah, I would agree, in the 11th hour, in Matt Smith's Doctor, was established and was interesting and was doing so many things. Whereas Shooty, you could almost be reading a book and you just look up going, oh yeah, he's running across a roof now. All right, yeah. He's a one-trick pony, to be quite honest, to me. I don't know what you think regarding, how your take on it.
Oh, I think he kind of did it all. Like he did the serious stuff really well. He did the comedy stuff really well, and he did the soap opera stuff really well. And that kind of, because obviously by then I'd ran out of new Doctor Who, so I started watching the old stuff, and I started right back at the beginning. And it, like the relationship of the Doctor and Rory and Amy and later River, it really reminded me of the original TARDIS crew.
That's interesting. I mean, that's interesting because so many people in different ways who, I mean,
Series 13 was trying to do and failed miserably at.
Yeah. And And they tried to do it with the 80s TARDIS crew, I think, because I remember John Nathan Turner talking about it. But because we're all Doctor Who fans from different generations, Hugh was doing my recording yesterday, and Hugh loves Barbara and that TARDIS crew. And so, of course, he would probably argue with you going, there's no way Amy was, because she was like wasn't she a sexagram or something? Wasn't she
she was a kissogram, yeah.
That's it, yeah. And
dressed as a policewoman.
It was classic Moffat. Adding a little bit of adult kind of humor, but maybe going too far. Whereas in the original TARDIS crew, there were two middle-class teachers and very, very safe people, and they were bothered about Susan and therefore stalked her and followed her home. Why can that go wrong? I never, as a teacher, followed kids home. You can't do that.
Well, it was the 60s.
It was the 60s, and they were following a schoolgirl in the fog. It's even worse.
Yeah,
I know. Different time.
But yeah, I mean, for me, it was like the Doctor reminded me of the Doctor, obviously, and Amy reminded me of Chesterton, and Bantam, and Rory reminded me of Barbara, and River reminded me of Susan.
Oh my God. Oh, well, everybody in the thread, he's giving you a lot to chew on there. My God. I mean, there's a debate show in itself.
Yeah, well.
So that's like you saying Barbara's Nissa. You do that. I know. It's classic. It's a debate point. Now we've got a lot. I've told people what we're going to talk about today, and of course we've done a bit of Doctor Who wide, but you can see the brief. Operation Salvage of Doctor Who. Could the Whoniverse kill the show? And the Disney Rumours. So I'm not going to kind of leave you champing at the bit, everyone. You know that's not my style. Please give us a like. The algorithms are different now, and actually some of our recommendations will disappear if it's not lively, and that's not me grifting. You need to switch on notifications and keep an eye on the likes. They seem to be getting measured more than everything else. Me and Rachel were discussing this the other day. So let's get to it. So as I was promising, here's the Disney rumor. And this came from Carolyn 5744. So let's have a look at it, and I'll put it on the big screen, and then Thread and James just butt in and tell me what you think. I read a theory on a Hollywood gossip site that might explain some of the chaos of Russell's current Doctor Who run. There is a rumor that David Tennant was originally going to do 8 or more episodes, not 4. In other words, several of Ncuti's scripts were specifically written with David Tennant's Doctor in mind, possibly with either Donna or Rose Noble as his companion. Right. Space Babies, The Devil's Cord, Boom and Rogue were written for David Tennant's 14th Doctor, but they were later given to Ncuti instead. Allegedly, Tennant and Rtd had a disagreement, perhaps over money or scheduling, and Tennant left after 4 episodes instead of the 8. Allegedly, Jonathan Groff from Rogue thought he was going to be playing opposite David Tennant and not Ncuti. Ncuti's last-minute casting was a chaotic and rushed decision by Rtd. Ncuti did not audition. Now, I've heard he has, so it's interesting. Rtd had a 3-year plan for the character of Ruby, and it was originally intended that Ruby was going to be the daughter of one of the gods. Oh, I say, oh God. Yeah. That does explain why in Church on the Ruby Road, her mother was wearing a hooded robe. And of course, we saw that in the Empire of Death. And I have to say, I did wonder, I thought, that's not a very modern vibe. Why would a normal human woman wear a hooded robe and point to a road sign? It makes no sense unless the ending was altered after Millie decided to leave the show instead of staying for the planned 3 years. Perhaps Millie also thought she was going to be working with David Tennant. And the last little bit, folks, before we discuss it, that's why the 15th Doctor and Ruby were immediately presented as the best friends in the early episodes because the scripts were originally written for the 15th Doctor and Donna. Also, the ending of Ruby's bizarre identity subplot, which made no sense, was changed suddenly and rewritten after the actress had said she intended to leave. Your thoughts, James?
Well, the bit about them expecting it to be David Tennant's Doctor with Donna Noble
I had
makes
heard
sense.
bits about that.
That does make sense. Like, why would they suddenly be so pally? I mean, obviously, like, I'd assumed it was just because it was such a short season compared to, I mean, like, only half the length of what previous seasons have been.
Yeah.
So I thought that they probably just missed a load out, but that makes sense. What doesn't make sense is the idea that they would have written David Tennant's Doctor crying all over the place and laughing at fart jokes.
Yeah. I mean,
or flipping out at the people in Dot and Bubble, and that wouldn't be his Doctor.
if this theory is correct about David Tennant might have done 8 or more episodes, remember he was parked from the giggle. And the theory was, some people said, oh, they've kept David Tennant around because it's a lack of trust in this new Doctor to have a spare just in case the program tanks. That was what I was hearing off people. There was a theory. I didn't go that far. I thought, oh God, Shooty wouldn't be stupid. He'd know that's what they're doing. But I thought they were only coming back for the 3 specials. Because they're busy people, David Tennant and Catherine Tate. They have their own shows and everything. They tend to be pretty busy. To do another 8 or 9, I'm trying to think, would David Tennant have agreed to do almost a season of Doctor Who after all those years? I'm not convinced by that bit. But I do see, when they were talking about those first scripts of season 1, when they kept saying, oh, we're best friends, we're best buddies. And I thought, we haven't seen any, and loads of fans said that, we haven't seen anything. There's been no evidence of this.
That bit does make sense. That part of the rumour does make sense.
Yeah. I mean, Geraint Williams, quite rightly, because we're all allowed to have an opinion, he says, yeah, rubbish. The trouble is, it's like the actual big Disney rumor, have they actually signed or not for season 3? I mean, the point is, this has gone on for so long that there must be an issue, and therefore we're all diving in to find the problems. I really do think when Gladiators was announced the other day to have season 3 commissioned, I mean, just like that, and that's what they're doing in Britain. I don't know about America, but in Britain, they just suddenly say dead quickly, without any drama, they just go, Series 3 has been commissioned for Gladiators. So why haven't they done that with Doctor Who? And when, 1 minute Rtd'S saying, oh, well, it's the way we do things. Right, okay. Well, not Gladiators then. The only thing I would say, James, is Gladiators is in-house BBC production, whereas this is a partnership with Disney, so therefore it might take longer to sign the deal. But it doesn't stop us all chatting, does it?
No.
So I get that bit with the scripts. I think the scripts have been quite poor. So the relationship between Shooty and Millie wasn't established at all as amazing. It's interesting that you get somebody like Jonathan Groff. He thought he was getting David Tennant to play Casanova off, but instead he got Shooty. I wonder, because Jonathan Groff wasn't enormous catch, was he?
I didn't even know who he was, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd seen him in Looking. I'm a gay man, so I'd seen him in a series for HBO called Looking, and he played opposite Russell Tovey. But and I know he does Broadway, so he can sing, he can dance, he can do all that stuff. The Pantheon of Gods, which they are doing, that with Devil's Cord and all the rest of it, and the Toy Maker and everything. So it did not make sense that Ruby's mother, when she dumped the baby, was in this hooded thing. I mean, why? It looked like it was late at night, nobody's about, so just dump the baby and run. But instead, to be honest, she looked as though she was in a shawl and robe that actually Jodie Whittaker wore when you got that horrible reveal when she walked in the woods on her own, as you do. And suddenly you saw it's a woman
during Wimbledon.
Yes, I remember. I dropped my ball. Sorry, yeah. Oh God, You know, I mean, I say I'm not too much of a Doctor Who geek, and then suddenly you're going, yeah, you were there in the middle of Wimbledon, waiting for the moment they reveal the Doctor, and it was a bit like when you watched the War Games in colour, and there was a dread in me. Please don't you dare put the fugitive Doctor in that regeneration to Pertwee. Don't you dare. And the heart was like this. And when they showed on that Wimbledon the reveal of the next Doctor, my heart was in my mouth because there had been whispers, hadn't there? And when you saw the hand, I wasn't sure. I don't know what everyone else thought. When I saw the hand, I was thinking, could it be a man's hand? No, dang. Killer. So that's that. Anything else to say on the rumor?
So it feels like someone's throwing enough to see if something might stick, because some of the things in there are feasible, some of the things in there aren't feasible.
What do you think is definitely not happening? Not true.
I can't see all the crying scenes and all that. I can't see that being written for David Tennant.
No.
I mean, why would his Doctor have a completely different character? Why would he suddenly start going off on one of people? That just doesn't make sense. Unless RTD like suddenly like last minute edited the script to try and make it for this new character that he hadn't really written.
I did a saloon on that. He did do an interview in 2024, and RTD did say that when he sees the rushes of the Shooty Doctor, he then adapted the script. So he wanted a more emotional Doctor, and he was giving him emotion in spades, and then he wrote more emotion in. So we got a very emotional Doctor. So I know some of this does not tally with what I hear in bits. But that means I don't poo-poo a rumor, because I think with every rumor there's elements of truth, but you have to hack back and prune some of the silly stuff, don't you? Yeah. I mean, I am wondering with this Pantheon of Gods, the hooded mother makes no sense. If you're going to do a story set in 2024, I mean, Disney must have looked at RTD going, a robed woman in 2024 of the UK. What is it, a burqa? What the hell? What's she doing? No, I mean, why is she dressed like that? You'd expect. Well, I mean, you can expect a lot of things that the young mother might be wearing, but not that. I don't think I've seen anybody in Britain wearing that robe at all. I mean, God, it was like a druid.
Oh, maybe she was coming from a reenactment party.
No, yeah, well, exactly. Like in The Awakening, another two-parter.
But I mean, the whole Pantheon of Gods things doesn't really make sense either, because that surely that's a fantasy story. Why is he turning it into fantasy instead of sci-fi? That's really starting to irk with me.
Yeah, I know. So yeah. Everybody, that was a rumor sent to me, obviously, after my show the other day. So anyway, I'm catching up with the thread as well, because you're also. I'll be careful. I know you are one of those naughty ones. Look at his name. Hello, sir. I have to admit, a bit of puke came out my mouth with the Whittaker reveal during Wimbledon. It wasn't what I wanted to see, and it spoiled the rest of that day. I do remember it was like, are we going there? Problem being, Gatwell only got the job because RTD fancied him. That's all there is to it. And if any of you know who actually had the role contractually before Gatwell was shooed in, you would all lose your minds. Well, I've written to you, Lee. I know I know. And it was late in the day, wasn't it? They said very late in the day. Oh, I don't know. I mean, Lee sounds as though he's saying he knows. I don't know. Stephen Braddock, good to see you. If David Tennant had a falling out with RTD, does that sound like anyone like Chris Eccleston? Maybe that explains his dismissive answer about the 14th Doctor dying in Venice and killing him off. RTD doesn't forgive easily. Well, I have to say, Chris Eccleston and RTD were close. The Second Coming, that they'd worked together before. And Chris Eccleston, when he got the job as the Doctor, said he really respected RTD's writing. But it didn't end like that, did it? John Barrowman, well, I don't think he's going to get a job in Doctor Who again. I could make a list. And actually, James, in one of my saloons, when I looked at some of RTD's interviews, he did actually say once that one actor dared change his words in the script. And he said, in a way, he watched him on telly diminish in the scene and disappear. He said, because I wrote it a certain way for impact. He changed the words and I watched him vanish on the screen. And there was almost a delight there. And so you can see, you just don't mess with him or you're off.
And yet he says exactly the opposite about Shooty.
Well, when you're in, you're in.
I mean, he literally said he gave him no direction whatsoever.
Yeah.
And just you be you.
Yeah, mind you, they do that with some of the Doctors, don't they? Because actually, they pick the Doctor because they're character actors, or they've got a quirky face, and they might play around with stuff, or they're a comic. And front, like John Pertwee's a comic actor, but then he played it straight. Patrick Troughton, a very famous character actor. William Hartnell, obviously dabbled with movies and everything, character actor. Now, Michael Herbert, who was on our show the other day, and no doubt will be on again, I would hope so. Michael Herbert, I was perfectly happy with the woman Doctor and Jodie as the Doctor. And our Whoniverse is enormous. I'm interested in Michael, because, you're the biographer of Malcolm Hulke. You know the 60s shows and everything. What I'm always intrigued when people say that, and fans do, is the Doctor was always a Time Lord, and then you had somebody like Romana, Time Lady. I don't know why suddenly this gender fluidity bit appeared, because they are making a thing on gender fluidity rather than saying anything else. And was it hell bent under Stephen Moffat? I mean, the damage was done there when he had a Time Lord from the Time Lord Council turn into a woman, just regenerate. Now, that wasn't established in the program at all. It was, you saw Romana, remember, in Destiny of the Daleks, went through what she tried every female possible, didn't she, before she decided to look like Lalla Ward. And it seemed to me...
Which was a very good decision.
Sorry, say that again, James.
Which was a very good decision.
Yes. But the point is that when there was that choice, and actually in the original War Games that me and Michael Herbert talked about, when Patrick Troughton's Doctor was offered choices of Doctor, and they're all little drawings, they were all men. So I'm just saying, Michael, I understand, and your opinion is allowed, of course. But as a fan, in another way, I'm thinking, but the Doctor was a Time Lord, and they were specific about that noun, and then was offered only males by the Time Lords. And then and my other point was Destiny of the Daleks. When Romana had a choice, if she was gender fluid, to be anything, she only picked women. So there's two counts when they're stuck to their kind of gender. So I'm interested.
I do have something to say about that, actually.
Go on.
At the time, I wasn't that far on my Classic Who journey, and I hadn't seen that yet, particularly the Romana 2 regeneration. I hadn't got that far yet when Jodie became the Doctor, so I didn't. It wasn't in my head that there was anything wrong with a Time Lord changing sex via regeneration. I obviously now I have seen more of Classic Who. I do have an issue with it, and it should never have happened. But at the time, I didn't, and I actually really enjoyed her first episode.
Yeah, well, we all tuned in and give it. I mean, this is when no, it wasn't the start. I have to be fair. Under Matt Smith, there was a bit of Space Jesus going on, and with David Tennant.
Sir C's come up with a good one again.
Yeah, I'll bring you up, sir, in a minute. Don't worry. But I mean, there is a point about possibly the DEI and stuff like that. There is, because is Britain now behind the curve? Because when I do my walk show on Friday, I've got an awful lot of stuff where Disney are dropping the DEI policies quite specifically now. And of course, they're currently in partnership with the BBC, so it's almost like they're both in very different places. So, Anya, let's have a look what Sir C said. Thanks to the current state of DI, any future announcement of casting of a new Doctor is pretty much a gender reveal. It's going to be very well. Actually, Sir, you're being very almost optimistic that there will be a new Doctor. Do you see what I mean? It's like we're wondering, and we'll be discussing today Operation Salvage, whether it'll get that far. You know, I mean, will it have? Does it have legs? Geraint, there was always talk about the Doctor being a woman since Tom left. Yeah, we know. JNT doing that blooming. JNT and I think Tom Baker both messed on a little bit, didn't they? And it's not about gender or whatever. It's about how well the Doctor's written and portrayed in the show. That is where my new defense position is, because obviously, you know, you get accused of being everything if you open your gob nowadays. But I still think if you're going to do a woman Doctor, which they did, Chris Chibnall, you need to be on your A game, and you need to have written a brilliant first woman Doctor, and he fell flat on his. I mean, useless, absolutely useless. You've put the cause back if that's the case. I would have thought. Although there is a certain person. Does anyone know who this person might be? Who's quite big-headed, quite arrogant, thinks they own Doctor Who, and who might think they could do a better job if they brought a woman Doctor in, because they could do it a lot better. My concern is the person running the show now might be tempted. Stephen Braddock. I wasn't the biggest fan of Jodie as the Doctor, but even her seasons actually still felt like Doctor with monsters and sci-fi plots. The latest series feels like nothing like Doctor Who. It has actually got worse. I agree with you there. Totally agree with you. All my panelists who come on, we talk about this and we say, when we now look back at Jodie Whittaker's era, we now actually think, oh my God, it is more Who than it felt at the time. I think at the time we felt that Who was slipping, but it just shows you how far it has slipped, that we actually think that looks more Who. Oh my God, it's actually a shock. As Bill says, we do say this, don't we? Joe Martin showed a woman could be the Doctor. With good writing and good acting, and the two coinciding, it does help. So yes, I agree. It's a tasty one, isn't it? So next cab on the rank, James, was this. I've got to go big screen. Now, everybody, on Operation Salvage of Doctor Who, how the hell do we do it? We've got 2 seasons in the bag. We can only guess it's gone a bit worse.
Let's agree with Christopher Eccleston and indeed Donald Trump and say drain the swamp.
Well, after the next season, of course, which we haven't seen, so it's like you can only expect things have got a bit worse. Now, Tinted Who, I normally show his colorized photographs on my shows, and he was texting the other day, as every Doctor Who fan does, and he came up with some ideas that if he was showrunner. So I just want to see what the thread and yourself think. And also, I know, James, you've got ideas about how you could rectify things. Divine and Dragon and others have written to me over the time. How can we just rectify this? And is it beyond? Because we are getting to that point. Some of us are saying it needs cancelling. Should we rest it for a while? Anyway, have a look at some of these. If he was showrunner, my plans would be experiment with doing episodes in different mediums and styles. Now, this is a no from me. A Lego episode or a retro style 60s one. Who's up for that? Some people are having a panic attack about that Celestial Toy Maker animation being too surreal. What do you reckon to that one, James?
Lego episode, no. Retro 60s style one, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe he's just giving an example, but the Lego one, I know they do Lego. No, I'm sorry, that's a no from me, if I'm allowed an opinion. What does the thread think? Could you? I thought Lego was the heteronormative. That was the week that was woke. We discussed this, where you've got to be careful with Lego now. I'd go to stickle bricks, or I don't know. Oh, do you know the world's gone mad? Right, what about the second one? Make Peladon a recurring setting for stories venting about current politics. I'll just say one thing. When you watch our detox on Friday, Cybermat Strikes, Dan on there, hates the Peladon stories, so I'm up for that. What do you reckon, James?
I've seen 2 Peladon stories and I liked both of them. But I mean, a recurring setting for stories venting about current politics. I don't think we should have stories venting about current politics. I think the writers should keep their politics the hell out of our entertainment.
Yeah, well, otherwise you might get booed like Taylor Swift. You know,
Indeed.
this is the thing. They get they all get political, the lovies, don't they? When they think they're on the side of right, and as soon as they're on the wrong side, there's a screeching of brakes. Me and Rachel said on one of the woke shows we did recently, it's amazingly and actually shocking how fast Disney and others have dropped DEI when I thought they believed in it. I thought they
They
believed
don't
in it.
believe in anything. They believe in doing the current thing.
Yeah. I mean, if you believe in something, you'll die for it. You'll fight for it. You'll protest for it. But they drop it, bang, just like that. Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, they're all around Trump's house, you know, suddenly best buddies. You think, oh, dear me, honestly, nobody has conviction nowadays, do they?
Well, Zuckerberg's just carrying on doing his I want to be Elon thing.
Yeah.
But he's just not clever enough.
Well, we could do the clever one. We've got RP here saying make our Alpha Centauri the companion. They'll be glad handing everybody with their tentacles. We've got let's have a look. Good to see Action Popcast, who had been unwell. A good writer could easily do a story that retcons everything from the Timeless Child, resets the timeline, and rejoins the Doctors into one. It can easily be course corrected on a writing level.
Right, okay. Now that is exactly what I was trying to say when I was emailing you about this very topic, when I was suggesting this topic. That Action Podcast is exactly what I was trying to say. You've put it much better than I did. Well done.
How could we? I have to say, I say that sometimes as geeks, we all kind of want to get the actual facts all in order, but actually, when RTD brought the series back in 2005, he just used one line, the Time War. It covered all the cracks. As long as you didn't go into the Time War and just left it alone, just now and again say the Time War. It's I don't know what's happened to time. It was a nice, neat little trick. Trouble is, everybody then decided, oh, let's go there. Big Finish, oh, let's go there. Dave the Doctor, let's live there. So yes, it is possible that a writer, just with a phrase, just bang, you know, that's it. And we may not have to go into lots and lots and lots of detail. Boomer Doug, who's still up, simple solution is everything from the specials onwards is an alternative universe which can be reset. Do you know what? I am getting closer to the Bobby Ewing comes out the shower moment, but it killed Dallas that. We've got to remember that when you say to the fans who've just watched the whole series that what you've just watched didn't happen, a lot of people say, oh, clear off. You know, they do. Now, whether we as Doctor Who fans are different to Dallas fans and go, so this is the real reality. Now my program is back and now I can sit here in safety and we might hang around. It might be different to being Dallas fans. I do not know. And it's a risk, you know, because once you've done it, you can't undo it. Once the genie's out the bottle.
Oh, here's one. Right. We're aboard Starbug. Lister and the cat are watching a modern episode of Red Dwarf.
Yeah.
And Lister jumps out of his bunk, turns off the TV and says, what the smeg? And then just as he does that, the TARDIS appears in the cargo bay of Starbug. I am, of course, joking. I don't really want crossovers, but I just thought that was fun.
But RTD did sit at Comic-Con San Diego with Star Trek team, and he talked about, wouldn't it be good if we all mixed our universes up? And you think,
oh yeah, they are doing that. They're doing it in a mobile game.
Yes, yeah. They're testing it out. You know, leave it alone. They can't just have the program as the program. Geraint Williams, in 2005, RTD said that the Time War would never, ever be revisited and never, ever be explored and never, ever will be referred to again. And then we got Stephen Moffat. Yeah. I I think he was going to stay true to it, but obviously he doesn't run the show until he runs the show again, which is a mess. Hasler Scott, hello. Dallas is different, Brendan. People were emotionally invested. No one is emotionally invested in Woku. Retcon it and move on. So I get your point, Hasler Scott. You know, it's a dying, you know, it's like if I'm in my garden and a bush is dying, be very surgical with it. Cut a lot of it off and you might save it. But if you let it keep dying slowly, the whole thing will die. So actually, just go for it. That's what you say? You're saying amputate, aren't you? That's what you're saying there, aren't you, Hasler Scott? Be strict. Be a very, very clinical strike, and you might save the program. What else does our friend Tinted Who say here? Base my doctors more on incarnations like 7 and 12.
I know 12 very well. I am not very familiar with 7, but I really do like 12.
Yeah, well, so
much more serious iteration, kind of like really reminded me of like 1 and 3.
Yeah. What about this one? Use GoldenEye as a reference point for the way the show should be relaunched under him, with 80s anime and 70s grindhouse cinema being used as inspiration later on for higher concept episodes.
Well, that just sounds like he's been sniffing glue.
Number 5. For bringing in new and fresh writers, I'd go the Harve Bennett route by giving them a DVD of Pyramids of Mars to explain what the show's all about and hope for the best. Which version, Tinted Who? Because it's been tampered with now with the Tales of the Rtd'S.
The original.
Let's hope so. I mean, well, Lee, while you're typing, you're going to send me your little Gmail back and we'll sort something out, remember? I'd reboot the franchise either way. A doctor that is a mysterious figure, no incarnation number. Yes, I've said that as well, Lee. Let's get rid of the numbers because I really don't want it like a boat in lake scenario. No, can doctor number 27, your time is up, coming in. You know, we're beyond that now. I think it cheapens it. He's just the doctor. Totally unknown and make no reference to the past. The Daleks and Cybermen are unknown to him. Yes, shall we give him amnesia? And I don't mean a meta crisis. I'm up for that, James.
Maybe. I think the problem with The Timeless Child is it was supposed to be an explanation. So just like kind of forgetting it doesn't work. I think perhaps an explanation of the explanation is needed. Well, it could be well written. Like it could be that the Timeless Child is a kidnapped version of the Doctor that's been used to splice genes with, like way back in the past, to try and push something else forward into the future. I don't know if I said that correctly. I know what I mean.
I mean, what if you're going to wade into? I mean, even RTD, and he's in big-headed mode at the moment. Even he has not gone near Timeless Children. And in an interview, he's even said, "I don't know what to make of it." Now, if he doesn't know what to make of it, and the only thing he said he took from the whole Timeless Child plot, because a lot of us couldn't make any bloody sense of it, was that the Doctor was a foundling. And I thought, God. And that's why we've got problems with season 2 writers saying that the Doctor's a refugee, an illegal immigrant. He landed on Earth with a sonic screwdriver when William Hartnell would have gone, did I? I had a walking stick. You know, honestly, the whole thing is getting just retconned in a bad way. You can see here, this opinion poll of Whovians was a few years ago. How do you feel about the Timeless Child reveal? 40% said I'm happy.
Now, that must have been a very, very specific, selected bunch of Whovians that they thought were going to say yes.
Yes, they all had blue hair. No, I don't. I don't.
No, I agree with you.
I think it's more than 60% now, because I think we've seen the damage that's been done, and it's limped since then. And remember, when we say the Timeless Children episode, which actually my panel last year did do a brilliant review of it, we really laid it out. The thing is, it's not just that. It's the cyber masters, it's the time lords, it's Gallifrey, it's the whole mess. And as somebody did say in the thread a little bit earlier, and it's been said out there, hasn't it, that maybe just say that the master was lying. It's not true.
Or 12 breaks out and hellbent and falls face forward into a cloud of magic mushrooms.
Well, you need something to happen. I mean, he was a manic whole. I didn't like him as a master. He was doing what he thought he had to do, but it wasn't my version. I didn't like the John Sim version. The master isn't a madman. And
I love Missy as a character, but I wish she wasn't supposed to be the master.
Do you like? And look at those Cybermen. I mean, this is when a franchise
dreadful.
This is when a franchise has completely lost the plot. I mean, where do you start with deconstructing that? Go and look at a 10th planet,
Henry.
Well, when you look at a 10th planet Cyberman, a Mondasian Cyberman, and then you look at that years later and you think, has this program improved? Have the production values gone up? Has common sense gone up or down? It's become a gimmick. It's become commercial. It's eating itself. It's a cancer on itself. And I actually think fan fiction does that as well. And I'm a fan. I do think we need to be extracted from this. And as Lee was saying, really, let's make it mysterious. Let's get an outsider. And somebody wrote to me yesterday and they made a good point that, Nicholas Meyer wrote Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. And wasn't a sci-fi writer. And yet rebooted the Star Trek franchise and got the characters back on form. And I loved Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. That is a pleasure.
Yeah. It's decent.
Yeah. And
it's not my favorite original cast movie. That's got to be The Undiscovered Country.
Yeah. Oh no, that's a good one. That's a good one.
But I think the best Star Trek movie overall is First Contact.
Right. We could certainly debate that. But and I get the point. And even in the 60s and 70s, that you didn't have to be a sci-fi writer to write a good Doctor Who. But you were an established and you were a good television writer. And this is just a concoction of mess. If you're going to do the Timeless Children, as in the Doctor's got an origin story, you need to land that and just focus razor sharp on that, but not have cyber masters on top. And he just laid too many things on there. And actually, I'm sure you and every Doctor Who fan has said this, but when you get back to seeing the Tectoon, what a stupid name, experimenting like some twisted, Nazi in the Second World War on the children, I thought, how am I supposed to think this is a good origin story for my hero? It's like, in fact, because we're celebrating 50 years of Doctor Who season 12, the Sontaran experiment did have that kind of experimentation going on. And Bob Baker and Dave Martin did want to reflect what happened in the Second World War. But this isn't a nice story the origin story for Superman is, the origin story for whoever is this amazing start. This is a gross, cruel, abusive start. I want nothing to do with it.
Yeah, it's just one of those kind of like, guilt anything that's an empire thing. It goes back to Monty Python, doesn't it? Obviously, Monty Python was on the other side taking the mickey out of it. Like, what have the Romans ever done for us? Apart from viaducts, clean water, food supplies, roads.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. It's exactly what Monty Python was taking the mickey out of. And, Monty Python was supposed to be, as Fred have been talking, anti-establishment. And now these people, as Adrian is saying, woke and making out they're anti-establishment, but they are the establishment.
Yeah. That
is what that is.
They've got too much power, yeah. David
Yeah.
Harding, I keep checking myself. Yeah, I'm sure you are, Toronto. I think the weather's not so good there. I'd like them to explore Gallifrey a bit more. David, you want them to risk it? Not just use it as either the villains of a story. See, I'm up to episode 5 of Invasion of Time again. And that missold after that beautiful Deadly Assassin, Invasion of Time kind of they looked as though they were running out of Time Lords. There weren't any left, and he's a bone arrow. Right. Or the victims of the Daleks or the Master, or whomever that the Doctor then has to save. Oh, God, you're taking a risk. You're asking this current crew to go into that. Oh, God. Garrett Williams, they went to a great deal of trouble to bring Gallifrey back, only to destroy it again. And you can't keep destroying it because it'll become a daft, stupid joke. And I think the series is a joke anyway, so we've got to really be careful we don't lay into that too much. Now back to these showrunner ideas. Let's kind of tick box through these and see what you really think. All right, because it's interesting. You know, every fan has a theory. Some of them you go, yeah, I'll park that for a minute. Let's have a look. So we'd got up to make my Christmas specials crossovers with popular children's literature like Alice in Wonderland and Peter Pan. You see,
and our survey says,
yeah, because I know Philip Hinchcliffe did lovely homages to House of Horror and all the rest of it, and I know you can do it. I didn't like. I'm sorry. I like Stephen Moffat's writing and other things, and he does good one-off Doctor Who, but I didn't like all this kind of. You know, the widow, the wardrobe, and some woodworm. You know, what were these Christmas episodes? I mean, I can't even remember the titles. The Many Husbands of River Song, because she was a slag. No, I mean, I don't know. What was it? There were all these stupid stories. Captain Mercurio, you know, with Robin.
Yeah, it's so strange to me that his writing dropped off so much because, like I say, season 5, his first full season, is by far my favorite season of Modern Who.
Are you one of those? Are you one of those fans? Because we're different ages. Would you agree? Because I haven't read Lumbarrow, and Anthony Green saying a whole season based on Lumbarrow with a new team. Of course, I know it seemed to have that reference in Flux, didn't it? Because everyone said, "Oh, that house, I think it's Lumbarrow," and I'm going, I don't know much about it. Because I don't, you know me, I'm a purist. I stick to the TV. I don't really sway into Big Finish. I don't sway into anything else. I'm a bit weird like that. Even the comic strip, you know, in Doctor Who Weekly. I know everyone goes on about the Iron Legions and all the rest of it. I saw them, flick through them, but I stuck to the Doctor Who from the TV. So I'm a funny one. I'm Generation X. So see, oh, well, hello, you will need to be watching our Woke show because we've mentioned Neil a few times. There was a time that I thought that Neil Gaiman would make an excellent showrunner for Doctor Who. And you're having second thoughts, are you? I mean, how to get a whole series taken off the telly permanently. I tell you what, Gallifrey might have been stuck in a pocket universe in Day of the Doctor, but can you imagine a Doctor Who season just locked forever in some Coburn conspiracy? I mean, will an Unearthly Child ever be on BBC iPlayer? Will it ever?
I just want to reply to the Zero Room. No more Christmas specials, please. I sort of agree with that, but I think a Doctor Who Christmas special should be about 20 minutes long, and literally just be the Doctor and his companions in the TARDIS celebrating Christmas for about 15-20 minutes.
Oh, you mean like with William Hartnell and the episode that thankfully is slightly lost, where I think he broke the fourth wall.
He did indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
Like that, but without breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, and there was a moment, I think...
And it should be just during something, like maybe during the news, you know?
I don't think there should ever be a Doctor Who Christmas special because, unfortunately, the twee lovies who run the media nowadays have no sense of reality or common sense. And when they think Christmas special, it's almost like, let's put tinsel on the TARDIS. You think, just stop it. A Christmas special to me is, it's dark nights, it's Northern Hemisphere, go behind the sofa, make it really exciting, like Wallace and Gromit movie was, with the robot gnomes. It was the robots of death done with plasticine, and Doctor Who ended up doing Jingle Bells, and he's the star of Bethlehem. Is kind of this girl from the latest nightclub. What the hell was all that about? It was a mess. Stephen Moffat, you should be ashamed of yourself.
At the time, I actually genuinely found that offensive,
Well,
and I hate people who say they find things offensive.
I hate you saying that. No, no, no. I'm kidding. But no, look, if you're gonna go there, they won't go in certain places nowadays. The lovies, they won't touch certain things, but they'll go to Christianity and they'll slag it off completely. Yeah. It's too trendy to do that, I think. Stephen Braddock, I remember Walk was first seen in the Goodies special, Goodies Rule OK. Oh my God, remember, where a bunch of mannequins took over the government and attack anything that disagrees with them. Sound familiar? Wouldn't you like the Goodies back? I'd like Spitting Image back. I'd like anything that satirizes this nonsense.
Okay. How about not the 9 o'clock news? That's what I'd pick.
Yes, not the 9 o'clock news. It was of its time. When I say it was of its time, I mean it lasted a few years, didn't it?
It kind of lingers.
Yeah, like a bad smell. So Ted News. I've got to agree. Season 5 with Matt Smith and David Moffat was the best of Stephen Moffat was the best of Doctor Who I've seen. Top David's run for me. I enjoyed the unpredictable part of Matt Smith where he could be dark then be good. I could go with that to a degree. The only thing I'll say, and it's not Matt Smith's fault, but it is Moffat's, is don't make him space Jesus. The moment he stood on Stonehenge, I found a problem because it makes no logical sense. I mean, you can do all your... It's a bit like Zulu Dawn, where they're all there, walks drift, and they're all kind of, surrounded by Zulus, and they're going to face the moment. So you might as well have some bravado, but you're going down. It's a bit, like that. It's a bit Henry V speechy. The trouble was Henry V won, and the trouble is here. If you're stood on Stonehenge shouting at every monster you've ever faced, and there's about 200 spaceships above you, and you think your little wonky sonic screwdriver is going to defeat everybody, I think it's called hubris. I just think he looks stupid. I like the Doctor when he's just got a plan on how to open the door, not how to defeat 200 spaceships by just shouting at them. So that's my little problem with that. It spoiled the era for me. I mean, you like Matt Smith, and that's just his Doctor. But what did you think of all the Space Jesus stuff, James?
Like I say, I'm specifically talking about season 5.
Yeah.
And Matt Smith's portrayal of the Doctor. After that, Moffat's writing went downhill, and it was only saved. The show was only saved by Peter Capaldi's even more amazing acting.
So are we actually saying, like, if we join all the dots here in the thread and us too, in what we're saying from different experiences, are we actually saying that this showrunner idea has to be cancelled, number one, because they can't sustain, they start well, then it tails off. You said season 5, for example, with Moffat. He was compromised by Sherlock, wasn't he? He's too busy. RTD ran out of ideas. Season 4, bye-bye, thank you. I'm more of a writer's room run by a series of producers, a bit like, I don't want Doctor Who to be a soap opera, but they actually do their soap opera writers' rooms very differently.
Oh, well, like they used to do it in Classic Who.
Yeah, but maybe a bigger, maybe a bigger kind of ensemble of people.
What did they call it? Like a executive?
You had a script editor and a producer. That's what you had.
What have I got here? Oh, Horns of Nimon I've got here. Let's see what it says.
You have a look what it said, and I'll just take everyone through these last few ideas that Tinted Who had. Write an episode based around Journey to the West. Pure historicals set in the Weimar Republic and the Summer of Love. Well, yeah. I mean, you can do any historical. I've got no problem with that. Number 9, if Bad Wolf and Disney are still producing, was it Tegan or Nissa in Castrovelva? If is one of the longest words in the English language. If, you have to turn it into a fact. Remember that moment? I love that moment in Castroval at end of episode 2 when they were going to face the Big Bang and the Zero Room. I might be in the Zero Room. He doesn't exist really.
Okay, here we go.
Isn't it?
We've got by Anthony Reid, produced by Graham Williams, directed by Kevin Rebane.
Yep.
Kenny McGrain, sorry.
It was a small team. It was always a small team. You always had one of the famous.
It's not one person in charge of everything.
It isn't, but it's always been a bit testy. Like Eric Saywood and Jane Teague always got a bit testy. Christopher H. Bidmead and Jane T had them time. Barry Letts and Terence Dix are the famous one, and Robert Holmes and Philip Hinchcliffe is another very famous productive team where just 2 of them, but they took. Maybe they were almost like partners. They were really discussing a season, what they wanted to do. I think the problem is when you just have one person who says, I own the sweet shop and this is how we're going to do it. Now, Lee Capaldi was a massive disappointment to me.
I'm going home if I don't win.
Yeah. Capaldi was a massive disappointment to me. He was done dirty and I just don't feel he ever got a chance to settle into the role. It honestly, I know there's been so many missed opportunities in Doctor Who over the years. Peter Capaldi is one of them, and I'm sure he thinks that, which is, well, I'm here, I'm up to do a version of the thick of it meets Doctor Who, and you've made me. Am I a good man? Am I, And Clara becomes the dominant influence. Please, please, please. How to misuse somebody. Now, just to finish these off, because we've got other things to discuss as well. Last one, retcon the TV movie by giving an alternative regeneration story from Sylvester to Paul. Gosh, I don't think you can. I don't think I could go that far back. I think you'd be really in big doo-doo because you've got to show respect. Let's have a look. So, are you okay?
Am I okay? Yeah.
Yeah. On the season, I mean, what I'll do is I'll give everybody a moment to feel like we've got real Doctor Who back. There you go. That's all you need, you see. All you need. But we do reviews, and I'll just show everybody, how we do reviews. It's quite, we can get quite tasty. This is surely one of the most controversial moments in Doctor Who history. We've always got the plane of stones. I think it looked like a nightclub. It was like a voyeurist. I mean, I think the shooty doctor would have just got on some little elevated stone and just kind of been gyrating and thought he was in some sort of little night spot. I think the doctor's going through. He's like in the charity shop, going through the shelves. He's going through all this bric-a-brac. We're going to die. Hold on a minute. I like this plastic. Hold on. Do you know they haven't dusted it?
What happens on the plane of stones stays on the plane of stones.
Thought I'd give you a nice little taster there because, we've got lots of reviews we've done. And while I'm away next week, I'm on holiday for a few days next week. So basically, we've got loads of reviews and discussion programs lined up for you. Don't you worry. Every slot will be filled. Detox, by Generates, everything. We've got reviews, Kinder, Sometime an Experiment. We've got a fantastic discussion with Hugh about how mental health, lunacy and madness has been represented in Doctor Who over the 61 years. I've got Simon Anthony, the Contrarian. Remember, he worked for the BBC. He was a video editor. So he talks about his time on Doctor Who, and there's some little stories there. So there's lots for you, even while I'm away in Spain for a few days. Okay, everybody? Now, here's a little kind of taster for you. When we were talking about the Sontaran experiments, and we were talking about what would the shooty doctor do, we've got a various things. I mean, look at that scene now. You look at it so differently. If it wasn't the Fourth Doctor with Harry as the Sontaran Styer is torturing one of the prisoners. That's a very different scene if it's the 15th Doctor, isn't it? A very, very different Doctor. You've got, oh, do you want a room? Is this a prequel to Rogue? Were the clues there all the time? So yes, it is a bit interesting, isn't it? I love to do What Would the Shooty Doctor Do, because you see how different Classic Who is to how it's getting depicted now. And I like to have a laugh at that. It's my way of criticizing RTD. I mean, look at this shot, James. I mean, great moment in Sontaran Experiment when Harry's about to, because Harry's angry because he's a doctor and he's just seen how these humans are being treated. And luckily the Doctor pulls him back, because obviously in those days, the Sontarans were really brutes with their strength. And but if you look at that scene, you're going, if that was the Shooty Doctor, I think we'd have to have a moment of quiet.
But he'd run away, wouldn't he?
Well, I don't know. They'd be snogging behind the rock. What happens at the Plane of Stone stays on display, you know, I mean, honestly. So we really had a laugh. And of course, I really took the pee out of this. I mean, this is a great little arc, isn't it? To go from Nerva Beacon, Genesis, and all the rest of it. But when you see all those silver orbs, if it was the 15th Doctor, he might have a point to say about, I've seen a lot of orbs in my time. And all of different sizes. Anyway, so that's us. We can be really cheeky on Doctor Who sometimes. Now, James, I never got your opinion on this. Inoa Elms, who has every right to be a writer, I've got no problem with that. Writer on Doctor Who? Well, let's just see. I'm sure you saw this the other day, and I just wanted to just see what you thought. It's that 4th paragraph that's the killer, isn't it? He's always loved the show. I've been watching since I was 10. It's about a displaced refugee from a war-torn planet who arrives on Earth with a screwdriver, not a gun or a shield. He calls himself the Doctor, like so many good immigrants I know. A title that's fundamentally about alleviating pain and suffering. His main superpower is empathy. The Doctor feels so much he needs 2 hearts just to process everything, and there are 15 versions of him. Right.
Sorry, no. The Doctor is not an immigrant. He's a tourist. He was briefly a refugee when he was John Pertwee and he was exiled by the Time Lords. But he was never an immigrant. He was a tourist.
And he, remember, why did he leave Gallifrey? Because it says they're war-torn planet. Now, I'm really going to ask you, because you're more of the Xennial.
The Time War happened long after the Doctor left Gallifrey. Even I know that, and I only started watching on Ecclestone's last episode.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because that's what I was about to say to you. You're Xennial. You've joined Doctor Who at a different time. Like you said, you didn't appreciate really the intro to Davros because you'd already seen him, so you'd lost the drama. But yeah, the war-torn planet, I understand it's the Time War nonsense, which was really just to buy time for RTD. It was just a narrative trick. Now it's become law. And I'm thinking, no, William Hartnell's Doctor and Patrick Troughton's Doctor in the War Games, everybody, doesn't it? He says he was bored. He was just bored. I've never heard a refugee, when they want to stay in Britain, when they make their appeal, we all know the things they're saying, their appeals, but I've never heard, if I go back, I'll die of boredom. I've never heard a refugee say that.
No. Gosh, making me go off on a tangent again, but do you know the amount of them who actually bloody go on holiday in the countries that they are supposed to have fled from?
Apparently so. Well, it's because some of them aren't coming from, they're not coming from countries where there's anything to seek refuge, like Albania. It's just there's elements of poverty. Michael Herbert, the Caledonian leader, Calgacus, I've probably said that completely wrong, said of the Romans in 84, they plunder, they slaughter, and they steal. This they falsely name empire, and when they make a wasteland, they call it peace. He's bringing some propriety to our discussion. As people are saying, the Doctor is an explorer or a tourist, as Boomer Doug, as Problem Being saying, the first Doctor was an exile of his own choosing. He was a wanderer in the 4th dimension, exiled from their own people. That's exactly what he said. It's on my Sunday stream. And this is it. I mean, it took me seconds to go back to the script in part 1 of An Unearthly Child. I mean, it's easy peasy. And then suddenly, suddenly I can find the answers, but RTD can't. That's the shocker. So I had major problems with a lot of what was said. The refugee one is you can see when the agenda's coming in. But then even if you just want to go on, do you know your Doctor Who or not? To say that the Doctor, don't you know that the Doctor arrived on Earth with a screwdriver? No, he didn't. He did not. He arrived in 1963. He had his granddaughter. He didn't have a sonic screwdriver. He didn't have a sonic walking stick either. That was it. Now, Simon Anthony keeps saying this is the man joking. The thing is, Simon Anthony, and you know this, and I certainly know this as, yes, shall I say it? Boomer Doug's got bets on this as an English teacher. Have a look. He's using no exclamation marks. Now, we all know, and I mean in the 4th paragraph, there's no exclamation marks. It's not a joke. You know when you're joking, it's either put in speech marks or it's put in exclamation marks. It isn't. It's not there. I think he means that. I think he honestly thinks we're going to come on the agenda. We're going, you know, it's agenda time. Haven't you had enough agenda? No, we haven't. So we're going to get more. So we've got a mixture of, you know, cuddly robots and, you know, Tinseltown TARDIS. I mean, I was joking earlier that the TARDIS, you know, Christmas specials have the TARDIS wrapped up in tinsel. Just take a look at that poster for Joy to the Worlds, and they've actually got blooming Christmas lights on the TARDIS. It's become a joke. It's become a marketing ploy. It's become a front. And it's a front for lots of things, Doctor Who. But basically, it's a police box. But what's inside that box is not what any of us would call our box of Whovian delights. No way.
I mean, it's cheapening Doctor Who and cheapening Christmas at the same time.
Yeah.
I want to say a double-edged sword, but what's the opposite of a sword? It's a double-edged kamikaze.
Yeah.
No, that's wrong. What's the words?
I'm trying to think.
I can't think of the word that I mean.
Don't worry.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's clear what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is we are where we are, and you know we've talked today about you know we've mentioned the Disney rumor, we've mentioned can you salvage this program. We're going to move on soon to the Whoniverse discussion, but while we are where we are regarding can you salvage this in its kind of diminished state, you look at the Shooty Doctor and how he's been depicted, and so many of the outfits make him look like a doll, make him look like he's a Barbie doll, basically. That's
what he is for us, really, isn't it?
Just let's dress him up. Let's just dress him up in different things.
I mean, he's the only Doctor I'm aware of, but bearing in mind I've only seen 1 to 4 and 9 to current. He's the only Doctor that I'm aware of that doesn't have a distinctive costume that you can recognize a mile off. Because he changes his costume all the time. He's just like the only time other Doctors I've seen have changed their costume was to actually like blend in a similar way to. I think it's maybe made ironically to the way that the TARDIS doesn't because of the chameleon circuit being broken.
Yeah.
Like every other Doctor has their own very, very distinctive look. And like most of the time, even when they are dressed in period appropriate clothing, you can tell that it's them, that there's still like bits about their costume.
And I will be fair, because if I criticize, I try and be consistent. I struggled with the burgundy outfit for Tom Baker with the question mark. I struggled with the cricket outfit because it did look a little bit more costume. And then onwards, the classic Doctors looked like costumes to me. to me. Question marks and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Question mark, you know. Now,
But it's the same thing. Like whether it's a look or it's a costume, it's still a constant thread, and that's what has been missing since Jodie Whittaker, since she steps out of the TARDIS in
Woman Who Fell to Earth.
No. The Rosa Parks episode, and they were all dressed in their modern day clothes. So it's like, you know, in RTD1 or in Moffat, they would have been dressed in period clothes, and in anything before that, they would have been dressed in period clothes. So it's, unless they didn't realise where they were, unless they dressed for Rio, you know.
Now I've got Joe Chapman here. Joe Chapman, where's the Gmail? I was waiting for the Gmail from you. I was going to try and get you on. Fashion Doll Doctor, you say. I know. This is what I mean. If you really, you want to be progressive. If you're RTD, you know, I see all his credentials. He gets them out all the time and tells us all about how worthy and earnest he is. Right. You want to, just like Chris Chibnall wanted the first female doctor, well, write a good script. That would help. Go away and do it. Redraft. That's rubbish. Do it again. RTD, you want, I mean, it shouldn't be a big deal, and I don't actually think it is. I think they think it's a big deal, but you've got your first black doctor, right? Our first gay doctor, I think, is the bigger issue. Okay.
Well, yeah, because it's not the first black doctor, is it? Because we had Joe Martin.
True. But they've made a big deal of this, you know, and now they've laid into it. So basically, what I'm saying is, we had Martha Jones, the first black companion, and you made her needy for the doctor, and that was awful because she was a good actress. You then had the other black companion, Bill Potts, who kept saying, "I'm a lesbian, don't you know?" She said it more times than Keir Starmer's dad's a toolmaker. You had that. You then had your next black actor, fugitive doctor. Well, she's hardly been in it though, so the point is, it's kind of, she's fizzled out at the moment. You've then got the first black doctor, and he's been written badly, and he's been turned into a Barbie doll, and a gay icon, if you want to do that stupid twaddle. I don't think he is, but do you know what I mean? Why can't you just go and have a black doctor and he's just like all the other doctors? Why can't you just make him equal? Why can't you give him respect? Why can't you just make him substantial as the rest? You've made him an object of fun, an object of ridicule. You've made him lesser. And therefore, that's not progressive. That's utter stupidity. And you're pushing your cause back, Mr. RTD, just as far back as Chris Chibnall's idea to make a female doctor collapsed to the point where the BBC, full of their DEI, had to kind of collapse in a heap and go, get rid. You know, I mean, you've got to be a good writer, and you've got to have a reason to do it. And I think most people in the thread who don't like the agendas being forced down their throats would give, for a second, a writer a chance if they were political, but they wrote a brilliant story and just subtly integrated it. But we're not giving anybody any credit because we're going, no, you're just, it's like isn't it funny that we had the sledgehammer in the giggle to create a new TARDIS? That's what you were thinking, which word do you use for sword? RTD, he doesn't write with a pen, you know. He writes Doctor Who with a sledgehammer nowadays.
Yeah. A big sledgehammer with Crayola written down the spine.
Yeah, well, actually, I saw RTD's writing. If everybody goes back, you can screenshot it. Go to Space Babies, and on the walls, you can see RTD's scripts. There were clues and Easter eggs everywhere. You can see the baby writing the crayons. That was RTD's scripts. It was his first drafts. There you go. It's there. That you heard it here first on Sensphere. Dear me.
You know what? I'm just going to say I believe you because I don't want to actually do that.
Everybody knows I screenshotted the Joy to the World. When Joy walks into that rubbish hotel, Sandringham Hotel, there's a gay nightclub there. And people didn't see it. I screenshotted it and I said, that's why the shooty doctor stayed for a year. He wasn't plumbing. he wasn't plumbing, I'm sorry. I think his sonic screwdriver was getting heavily worked. Right. Problem being, a costume does not maketh a man. The character is as mismatched as his various costumes. And look, if we try and be the better people, Shooty as just the actor, does he know what his doctor is yet? Because what am I wearing today? Am I wearing a stupid version of the Sontaran experiment, Sarah Jane Cagoule, like in 73 Yards, but she did it better? Am I wearing a Harry Sullivan coat from Sontaran experiment? Oh yeah, I've done my stuff. Because he's won that. But Harry looked better in it. Well, you can see one there. I mean, in season 2, he's wearing this denim outfit that goes from a kind of waistcoat into a skirt. As they said, gender pushing, societal pushing costumes. Why? Oh, look, I know. I'm sorry, Brian. Bill Potts was a lesbian. Have I outed her? I might have outed her. Oh my God, that's terrible. Oh, don't out people. That's terrible. I'm sorry, Bill Potts. Sorry. She's a Cyberman now. Don't worry. Rob Alexander, Devil's Cord was more Austin Powers costumes. Oh, well, why did we like Austin Powers? Because it was a
parody.
It was a brilliant parody of the James Bonds, and
it was actually funny.
And it was very funny. And Devil's Cord
had people who could act in it.
Oh, you're getting very demanding, you, James.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
I do that.
You could never please you. Right, Charlie. The continuity is too convoluted now. Oh, tell me. And it's only 45-minute stories, so you need to. This is what we said when we did our review of the Sontaran experiment, and we talked about two-parters. And I said, whether the forerunners to what RTD wanted, because if you think about it, because some of my panelists were saying, why have you picked Sontaran experiment? I said, it's 50 years old. But I said also because it has a simple plot. It's well executed. It's not complicated. And if you think about it, RTD has done that to Doctor Who now, but throughout. One simple thread. And just like in the Sontaran experiment, there was an arc. There was a Nerva Beacon arc. RTD likes the shorter, simpler plot where he can just do all the kind of popular culture touches and songs and dance. There's always time for a song, isn't there? I mean, if we can, James, before we finish today, if we can do a little ditty, I think,
okay.
I mean, well, why should we just keep talking, James? What we should do is a little song and dance. I think that's what everybody wants, isn't it? I think surely
there are 9 guitars, and I don't know how many synthesizers in this room.
Don't tell RTD, because he'll have you on and he'll say, "Oh, what we could do is a very interesting episode with Jimi Hendrix." And no, stop it. Yeah, can do history. What about? I mean, that was history. Regency periods. Who's got the biggest gun? Who's got the tidiest spaceship? Yeah, that sort of thing. That was the problem. I mean, autopsying of where we are with Doctor Who and how we can cheer up and all the rest of it. Simon Nancy, the contrarian's only saying that because he's nowhere near me. Look, oh, shut up, Brendan. I'll continue. Right, let's have a look. What did you think of? And you see, when we looked at season 1 and we judged it, Joe Chapman, I can see you in the thread. Have you written your Gmail yet? Away, tell me when you're ready to come on. We scored it so badly. I mean, just because Legend of the Ruby Sundays at the top doesn't mean that means it was brilliant. It just means 79 points out of hundreds of points. It was terrible. God, it's such a weak season. I mean, it was like, I mean, everyone says, certain prime ministers were limp lettuces. That was a cabbage patch of a season. My God, honestly, have we all become veggies or something? I mean, the whole season was. Kez the Drone, hoping we get Sin and Daleks in next series. Well, of course it would. You see, Daleks can elevate now. And so they can go on those little dance platforms, can't they? Because Shooty used to do that. Did you know? You see, we could be in some gay nightclub. It's got to be gay. Come on, get with the script. We'll be in an LGBT nightclub, and on one platform will be the Doctor. Remember, hey, if you think I'm being stupid, go back to the Rogue episode. We had "You Can't Get Me Out of Your Head" from Kylie Minogue, and you had Rogue and him messing on and flirting. Right. So how far on am I? This is the Dalek episode. We're in an LGBT nightclub, and the 15th Doctor's on one platform, gyrating away. I'm sure he'll be in his kilt. And on the other platform will be an elevated Dalek. And that sink plunger will be doing stuff that you've never seen before. I think there you go. That's the future. James, would you commission my script?
Well, it can't be any worse, can it?
I think it can. I think we're going to see that in season 2.
No, I mean, yours can't be any worse than season 2.
Yeah. Simon Anthony, when he's been on our show, he will always remind us that he has a theory that the bi-generation is a master plan for 2 seasons to go fantasy. But and he reminds me the David Tennant Doctor's there, and then all of a sudden it'll be all rectified again. And so basically, a lot of our problems will be corrected. Have you got that optimism?
I don't. The optimism I have is that maybe RTD will reject Disney rejecting DEI, and that will lead to Disney withdrawing funding. That will lead to the BBC not being able to afford Doctor Who and selling on the license. And maybe somebody like Dave, who recently did a very good version of Red Dwarf, might pick it up.
Yeah,
obviously their first attempt at Red Dwarf was rubbish, but and the second was not great, but then they made a third attempt and a fourth attempt, which were both really good, and then they did a movie based around the cat race, which was absolutely awesome. So apparently they do know what they're doing. So I think that would be the kind of ideal solution to the problem.
I do think, when I said, I think a lot of us are really thinking fresh blood now. But we don't mean give Stephen Moffat a chance to come back. We don't mean give Chris Chibnall a few episodes. We don't mean anything like that.
No, we need new.
Very new. And I don't mean Peter McTeague either. I really do mean it's got to be somebody who's not been anywhere near Doctor Who. Somebody who might actually sit down and actually not have written 3 scripts by tea time and then go to Canal Street and meet some drag queens and then come back for tea and then write another script. No, what I'm saying is they'll sit down and as a committee, they'll have a good chat. They might even do some vox pops and say, where's it gone wrong with the fans? I'm not saying you do anything to do with get the fans involved and do an Ian Levine or anything. No. What I'm saying is, but you have to start from where the disaster is and then you pick up. That's where RTD messed up. When he came back, I actually thought he was going to be the sense in the room. And it's my fault. I actually put too much optimism there. I was
the same. I was absolutely the same.
I thought he'd come back and go, right, okay, I'm going to be very respectful.
I'm embarrassed about it now.
Yeah. Well, no, but we're being honest about it. I mean, it's nice to be optimistic in part, but now I'm more cynical. That's the danger, isn't it? He comes back. He looks at the ratings under the Chibnall and Whittaker era. He has a chat with the BBC going, yeah, I know it was... They have a little chat. They have the demographics. They know what's going on. RTD goes, right, okay, so we'll take a right detour from Timeless Children. I thought he was going to say, I'll cleverly just not mention the Timeless Children for a few years. I'll let the grass grow and everything. I thought that was his master plan. I thought he would actually go, I need to establish core Doctor Who. I need to get the kids talking about it. And I don't mean regarding the LGBT and stuff agenda. I mean, get the kids talking about that new monster. Oh, that bloodthirsty bit, that bit of gore. Did you see that shadow on the wall? I want them talking
about the moral dilemma that the Doctor had to go through with, like, which planet to save. You know, who is in the right, who is in the wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think fundamentally get the kids talking about Doctor Who in a way that's not kind of, did you see that crap?
In a way that they're talking about intellectual stuff rather than
Yeah.
gender politics.
But you've got to remember the unique selling point of Doctor Who, the behind the sofa element, the cliffhanger scream. You need that bit back. There was always a reason for me not to go to the toilet for 25 minutes. I was holding on for the cliffhanger. There was always a reason to hang around, even in a little bit, which I might not have understood, a bit of political intrigue or something. You know, I mean, Genesis of the Daleks, you know, the one I always mention, there's moments of Machiavellian stuff going on there that for a 5-year-old went way above my head. But I was always hanging around going, I know something's going to happen in a minute. You know, he'll come out and he's strangled by a Dalek, you know, a mutant, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That needs to come back into the program. And once you've done that, James, and I'll see what your version of how we bring it back. Once you've got the kids talking at school and saying, that scared me. Go on, have a look at that. Look at that bit. Whoa. And then they share that bit and clip it out and TikTok it and everything. But then within the program, you've got some clever sci-fi concept. You can do, now we've got the budget, you can then go for a nice special effect or something, which might also get the kids talking about it. And then,
but do we have the budget anymore? Will Disney pull the funding?
I think a canny use of the budget is probably what I mean. I don't want us to do a Star Trek Wrath of Khan, lots of explosions and Enterprise, and you know, we don't need to do that. It was always the TARDIS.
We've had exploding TARDIS.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, that's passé now as well. What we should do, I think, is a canny use of the budget that's there. You know, the upgrade of the Rutan, for example, a simple thing like that, fine. I don't think that will have broke the bank. And I have to say, if you said to me, and RTD I don't know, he did say, maybe with his poker game, when he was saying, we don't need Disney's money, really. We could, if we have to, we can go back and write more horror fan rock. Right. Okay, then. Go on. I'm giving you the green light, RTD. Actually, save the BBC money. You love the BBC RTD. So actually, they say, look, we've got all this money for your 8 episodes. And you go, put it back. You save it. I'm doing a Lighthouse story. Bye. Do you know what I mean? I mean, he doesn't need that amount of money, you know. And to be honest, I'm sorry, I'll shut my face in a minute. But the Boom episode, they spent all that money on that LED background, which everybody said, oh, you can tell the green screen, or you can tell this, or you can tell that. It still didn't really work. You could have just gone to a quarry.
Yeah.
Now, that you can hear I'm saying get the fear factor back. In your case, what do you think will get back Doctor Who back on an even keel that you thought RTD was going to do?
Well, I thought he was going to retcon the retcon and like bring it back to his. You had to, didn't you?
Well, it's Mavity.
Have you ever thought of working in a pub? Because you'd make a great bar steward. Yeah, I
was a bouncer in I was a bouncer for old people because I was true. I worked in a hotel. I was the bouncer on the door. I was sending old people away if they got rowdy. I was never good enough to be a bouncer for a proper nightclub. Just old people. I know my level. Sorry about that.
Well, I was lucky that I was always the entertainment, so the bouncers were on my side.
I could always sneak in. I'm short enough to sneak in, and the bouncers wouldn't see me.
Are you short as well? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm 5'9", so I'm like about 3/4 of a foot shorter than most guys.
Yeah, I mean, would I be auditioning for C3PO or RTD2? And the jury's out.
I think we'd both be auditioning for Ewoks.
Well, furries are in now. Everybody's a furry. The Ewoks were pioneers. But
or are they Pyrenees?
I mean, they were cute, but I mean, I didn't want cute in Star Wars. I just wanted to get on with the story. But anyway, we had Ewoks. They were very happy when they won the when they won the war. But I would say there you go. I've changed the slide for you. But yeah, how would you bring it back to being good Doctor Who?
Well, there has to be some kind of way that the timeless child isn't the Doctor. It's some kind of maybe malicious injection into our universe. That would help. Aside from that, just concentrate on telling stories and not promoting agendas, and having people who can act rather than diversity hires. I'll be quite frank. The two main people who I really want to play the Doctor are both black.
Yeah.
And they are Adrian Lester and Danny John Jules. So, and I don't give a flying what sexuality the Doctor is, so long as the Doctor's actor is, so long as it's not in the Doctor, because the Doctor shouldn't have a sexuality. I know I say this every time I come on.
No, look, the sense fee has only been going a year. It's a year-long hobby. I can't believe it myself, but when it was only about 5 programs in, we did one called No Sex in the TARDIS. And we established early on, even before season 1 started, we did say, no sex in the TARDIS. And some of us
I completely agree with that.
And some of us got quite serious about it, because me and John have been in careers at Safeguarded Children, and it blurs the message. There was a song called Blurred Lines, and that ended up getting into trouble, because when you're selling a message to children and families, there should be a clear message. You don't blur the lines on major things, and safeguarding is one of them. And actually always being obsessive in your plot lines, that you always get a 19-year-old girl in the TARDIS and you're 1,000 years old. I'm sorry. How do you sell that as a progressive? You just can't. If you're 1,000 years old, find somebody your own age. I mean, that's what you say when it's relationships. An age gap sometimes can be a problem as the people get older. You know that because you sometimes don't have the same interests and shared experiences when you grew up, that kind of thing. So you've got this very old 1,000-year-old Doctor, and he can learn from this 19-year-old blink of an eye human. It's an older nonsense. And then you have to ask questions about what message is that selling to teenagers and young kids. What to go to get in the strange vehicle with a strange man who offers you, I mean, it doesn't work.
I think we're suggesting that it's the G word, and I agree with you. I think it is.
Yeah, I never use that word because it is only a program, and what the G word does happen out there, and I know because obviously, safeguarding of children, but because I have to know my perspective, which is I understand, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing. I always like proof. These are scripts. These are plots. They're not exactly helping the message. And since they seem to want Doctor Who to be all about the message, there's a message I'd like them to get across, which is you don't go with strangers in strange vehicles when they offer you the universe. It doesn't look right. And actually, the Doctor crying, that shot there is from The Empire of Death at the end, when Ruby Sunday, the 19-year-old, has left. And he's inconsolable. Oh, come on. I dare say he's seen his parents die. We don't need that story, but, he's been exiled from his planet. He's been wandering the universe. He's seen so much death and destruction and had dilemmas and stresses, and he's getting upset about a 19-year-old girl going to see her dad. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's obsessive, creepy, stalky behavior.
Yeah, so no sex in the TARDIS because you take us into soap opera. It doesn't have a good ending. I've just made that point. It's a bad message. You shouldn't have gone there. I'm not a parent, but at least my life has been working with kids. RTD, you haven't got that hinterland. You can't see the message that's under everybody else's nose. You can't. And get out quick. Get out. Get him into the outer space and stop these messages to do with this age gap and the Doctor fancying this and fancying that and fancying Rogue. It doesn't matter whether he was gay or not, but he endangered his companion because of his lust. That was the problem. That he's not a hero.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, when he did a relatively good job of bringing Doctor Who back in the first place, to the extent that back then new people like me came to watch it.
Yeah.
Like I say, I ended up enjoying the Moffat era more than the RTD era, but he made me watch it.
Right, if you wanted to get this is Operation Salvage. If you wanted the Doctor to be more Doctor-ish, yeah, and like you say, you watch your Star Treks, your Red Dwarfs, and everything. What do you want in a hero in Doctor Who? What do you want him to be like?
Integrity and mystery.
Okay. So the mystery we should be able to do, since it's called Doctor Who. We should be able to do it. The integrity one, you mean the moral leadership?
Yeah, I mean having a spine. I mean the doing what's right, even if it's not what's best for you.
Yes. Being brave. Thinking of others. Self-sacrifice. I mean, that was Logopolis. That was Caves of Androzani. The Doctor sacrificed himself for others. Caves of Androzani is a brilliant example of that. Actually, David Tennant's Doctor with Bernard Cribbins. That was a beauty. I mean, that was RTD writing,
that was brilliant. And Bernard Cribbins was so good in that.
It was, and it was a really clever moment where the whole of his adventures, and you could see the David Tennant Doctor was saying, "I want to keep going," and then he was stuck in a booth, about to be, killed with radio.
He will knock 4 times. That was so well written. That was so well written that I don't think he did it on purpose. I think it was an accident.
Well, if you've seen the writer's tale, haven't you? For ages, he didn't know what the resolution was. He kept saying to Benjamin Cook, "I've got this 4 knocks thing." I think it was first mentioned in Planet of the Dead when that black woman at the passenger in the bus, she said something about 4 knocks. She gave him a warning. He hadn't thought it through, but he nailed it. He didn't nail the meta crisis, Donna, did he? That didn't work in the end. Ultimately, that was a disaster. His kissing, Chris Eccleston kissing Billy Piper to suck out the whole time vortex was a load of blather that makes it doesn't even make sense in fantasy. That's just nonsense. What were they doing? They were kissing each other, and all this Tinkerbell dust was going back and forth all the time. It sounds a little bit kind of a bit intense. It's a hell of a kiss, that. I mean, if you think of it, it's more than vaping, isn't it? I mean, that's I'm going to have the whole time vortex. Can you go and get a vape that's called time vortex?
Yeah.
I'm just going to vape the whole time vortex. There you go. His resets normally land so badly, and it's not thought. So anyway, yeah, we've mentioned the sexualization. We want the moral leadership back. You were saying then that we want our heroes back. It's not been happening.
Yeah, I mean, the Doctor should be the Doctor. The Doctor should be like, I think it was River who said, "Oh, you hear that noise, and there's hope."
Yeah,
like the TARDIS noise.
Yeah.
Would you feel that now? Like if modern Doctor Who was all you'd seen, like by modern I mean like Chibnall and RTD2. That's hard to say. Would you hear that sound and think hope, or would you hear that sound and think, "Oh, for goodness sake"?
Well, it's unfortunate because like I know what you mean. When I hear that TARDIS sound, you're full of hope. Unfortunately, there's normally going to be a sound straight after that, which is "Hi, honey babes," and I don't think that gives you glee and relief that.
No.
because when he landed at unit and went, "Hi, honey babes," gave me the loving. It was only 40 minutes later he was whacking a wall through frustration, and when Sutek was about to obliterate everybody into sand, he was stood there gawping. He was not hardly a hero, useless. So yes, he needs to sort his emotions out and get out of it. Now earlier. I think it was Garrett Williams said, but what about Richard E. Grant's Doctor in Rogue? What about all that canon mess? And I have to say, the only way you can go forward with Doctor Who now, Operation Salvage, is you actually have to cut the strings quite a lot. I actually think the next showrunner, and I think they should be called a producer of a writer's room, I think they personally should cut any links with the old Doctor Who for a season or two. And really bed it down, like you said, the mystery. Get the
just have no references, no nothing. Just
everybody in the world knows Doctor Who now. You don't need to do a bit of
even if they come in with a new companion and they appear to have, if they get good enough actors, if they appear to have an established relationship, and they just come in with no explanation and start solving mysteries like Mulder and Scully.
Look, anything, and because I mean, I suppose Tinted Who was saying use certain templates. Use a template, but don't make it Buffy. Don't make it Stranger Things. Doctor Who is unique, and it's only. Do you know what? It's only somebody at the BBC who have a unique show. Nobody in the world can emulate it or copy it. They've tried. Primeval tanked. Everybody who's tried it has failed. Doctor Who is actually amazing in television history. It is unique. And so what does RTD do? He says, let's make it like another show.
Pillock.
Absolutely madness. I mean, it's just, look at what's under your nose. He's supposed to be a Doctor Who fan. You know, is he missing the point here? Now I've been naughty. The thread has been on fire, so let's catch up with a few of these ideas. So actually Peter Dinklage would make an excellent Doctor. Did you see the rumor that he might be the Master? Yokai says kissing Billy Piper is more than vaping. Adrian is happy to get sex out of the Doctor Who, but remember Adrian Sherlock? Can you remember the Flux episode when Yaz and the Doctor flew through the air, the TARDIS doors opened, and they landed on a double bed in the console room? It had been upgraded from Planet of the Daleks. It was no longer MFI. Did it rare? What did they do in that double bed? I mean, double beds are for couples and stuff, really, and unless you want to just spread out. So yes, double bed in a console room, no sex in TARDIS. Farsight, that's the room. I'm sure it will all come out. Apparently, that's why you give him the role in 73 Yards as a consolation prize. Oh, we're getting bits of gossip. We all want to know. Problem being thinks he knows who got the Doctor job then when Shooty got it. And everybody's trying to guess. And Lee is not going to tell me. I want Lee to come on, but, about other stuff. Daleks are forever. A hero should be virtuous, strong, moral, intelligent, have the genitals he was born with, who were misses. Since when did we know anything about Troutons, Hartnells, or any? Well, and be willing to turn his enemies into jam whilst making a witty psycho quip. As a kid, I loved Chop Suey, the Galactic Emperor, when he shouted at Morbius. That's what I liked, but it was still scary. I can't disagree with what you're saying in essence there. Eastland Burkholder, we're getting all the troops in now. The classroom's bulging. If Shooty was a funny, incompetent delivery man, funny and good. John Lydon for the Doctor, says Richard Brown. Stephen Braddock, imagine the third Doctor rocking up at unit saying, give me the lovin'. Imagine the Briggs face. it wouldn't have landed in the 1970s. Can you see that even landing as a concept and as a line? And you know what? As I keep saying, since I'm Generation X, the progressives love to talk about the 70s as a sexist, racist time on TV. And yet a 2025 TV program that wants to be very modern is doing all this objectifying and lusting around. It's going to age very badly.
Yeah, and the Trotters are best mates with Denzel.
It's just you can feel our pain, everyone. John Steed, Doctor Who should be Doctor Who. Make a different show if you want something else. As I say, yeah, if you want to go into politics, RTD, go and stand for a MP. Go on then, off you go. Super John, good to see you. I've followed you in various places. The bi-generation was the worst thing to happen. It wasn't a proper regeneration. I agree with you. The only thing I'm holding on to, although I mean it's called desperation, is when Simon Anthony says he thinks it's part of a 2-year plan, and after that the fantasy stops and we go back to normal. The trouble is with anything like that is RTD that complacent? Is he that complacent that you get 2 years to save Doctor Who, to mess around? I would have said experimentation is definitely not the thing you should be doing at this point in Doctor Who's history. Experimentation can either... I think he shot for the stars when actually what he should have done is gone step by step to build the program up. He's gone a bit dramatic, hasn't he, RTD? He's thought he could save it in 1 minute. And I think this is going to be a longer job. And as a lot of us have said, whoever, if anybody does take over Doctor Who one day, whether they cancel it and bring it back or whatever, they need to do a lot of retrieving. And I think it's going to be a hell of a salvage job with Doctor Who now. You're going to have to slowly build the people's trust again. Slowly build people's love again, because the ridicule is high. You just look at all that mess. Now, there's one other little thing that you did actually say to me. You think the Whoniverse as a concept is possibly dangerous for the main show.
Yeah. I think the more they splinter it, the more different things they have to intertwine together. And I mean, they're having enough difficulty making one show make sense. They can't make one episode make sense. How are they going to make episodes across 2, 3, 4 series make sense? And another thing about that is, like, when one show ends, if one show ends perfectly, the other show is probably going to run out of steam and end badly. Like what happened to the brilliant Buffy season finale and the absolutely rubbish Angel season finale, because it was rushed. Because I mean that was terrible. And let's go to work.
And if we look at, you see, this is it. I mean, the point I just made. I mean, I don't
want to see that happen to Doctor Who. That's what I'm saying.
No, but if you look at the two things, when I was saying one thing, I was having my little rant, and then if you think about it, what you've just said, you think, well, actually, the Whoniverse is jumping the gun. It's assuming too many things. You think that you can rectify the Doctor Who ship just like that.
You think there's going to be any viewers?
Yeah, and unfortunately,
it'll end up like the Acolyte. I bet the what's it called, the War Between the Land and the Sea. I bet it'll end up like the Acolyte.
Do you know, I've got a funny, I don't know, I've got a funny theory on it. I know there's going to be a lot of messaging. You can tell that because it's environment and net zero. You can imagine that. I can imagine a sea devil with a plastic bag at one point waving it with Greta Thunberg behind him. I can see it. But apart from that, I mean, they might take Greta Thunberg hostage, and that's kind of the bargaining chip. We won't give you Greta back unless you stop littering the sea with plastic. And the universe, you know, the United Nations goes, I don't know if we're bothered, you know. And there's, you know, I can see the 5-part episode though, and think actually they said it might be, it's got an independent vibe and it's very gritty. I can see it possibly being maybe get more traction with casual viewers than the Doctor Who being very gay, very out there, very bring me the loving. I actually think the spin-off in this case might grab a few more viewers, the casual viewers, than have been grabbed for the Doctor Who one, you know. I mean, I know it's speculation. Dreadnought, they could have made a different show instead of dragging Doctor Who through the mud. Could have made a show like Doctor Who, but only female or whatever they wanted to do. This is the argument with James Bond, isn't it? You know, if you want to make Jane Bond, go and make Jane Bond. And if it tanks, then James Bond is still, as a franchise, complete. But, you know, they think they can. I just think in the end, ultimately, it's all hubris. They think they can do it. I mean, God, you think you can take a 60-year franchise and change it? Wow. Wow, 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 wow. And stop, and please, Bad Wolf, BBC, RTD, Shooty, stop telling me the program has always been about change and regeneration. Yeah, the word regeneration wasn't even used in 1963, so don't even start me on that one. Yes, it's always slightly evolved. I understand that. Every Doctor Who fan understands that. When you change a doctor, it changes in style after time. Yeah, we understand, but that doesn't mean you can do what the hell you want with it and turn it into some sort of stupid space opera on these with EastEnders cast or something. Super John, I think when we saw Davros in the Children in Need clip, or now you see Super John, I don't know if you've seen us before, but I'm going to put, I should be putting a toxic alert up. I have a toxic alert alarm bell when we'd forgotten that. Apparently, my therapist has done very well, and it's cost a bomb. Now I'll have to start again. No, I think when we saw Davros in the Children in Need clip without his life support chair, I think that was the red flag that things were going to be bad for the series. You are right. In my case, anyway. James?
Yeah, I mean, what he said about it was like Davros was in a wheelchair, which is completely not true. It was
it was a life support machine, wasn't it? It was
a life support machine. Weaponized control desk where he was controlling an entire race from that machine.
Yeah,
and the idea that it's supposed to, he thinks, make people think that disabled people are bad. That's completely and utterly psycho. And then he goes and puts a woman in a wheelchair with rocket launchers attached to her bleeding wheelchair. So now we're supposed to think disabled people are violent instead of bad.
I was going to make the same point. I was going to make the same point, but almost a slightly different conclusion. What's interesting is if the Davros in the wheelchair life support machine is so bad. Now I'm going to make the analogy. He always had them three, them lovely little kind of, what do you call them? He just clipped them forward and back. When he did one, the Daleks, the doors opened back into the Khaled bunker, and he did another one and all that. There's a certain button that Tom Baker pressed and he has all the systems there. And he obviously has an amazing life support system because they exterminated him and then we saw him again in Destiny. Now, that's bad. That's all bad according to RTD. And it's a horrible trope of disabled people to be treated like that. And then, as you say, quite rightly, James, so what we do is we put somebody else in a wheelchair with all the gadgets, and that's all right. What's different? What's different?
I mean, that's the question I was posing, really.
Evil, good. One person's evil, one person's good. Therefore, it's okay because it's all about the message.
Well, I would refer you to a line from Final Fantasy VIII. There is no good or evil, only perspective.
Well, yeah. To a degree. I mean,
I'm not saying I agree with it, but that's what it sounds like.
Yeah. Stephen Braddock, it was never a wheelchair, and not all people in wheelchairs are evil. Wait. If anyone's in Benidorm next week when me and Jamie are there with the puppets, there's people in very dangerous motor scooters, and some of them are evil because they clip your heels and they run you over.
I work in a supermarket. I know this to be factual.
Yes, some people in motor scooters especially are evil. RTD, get a life. Maybe in Canal Street you don't see lots of people on motor scooters, but my God, you go to Benidorm, there are some people, they are driving a motor scooter with a big pizza at the front there, the dog on the back. They're walking the dog by having him sat on the motor scooter. It's a funny old world nowadays, I tell you. So I think there's evil everywhere, and I think some motor scooter drivers are as evil as anybody else. They're definitely mischievous. So anyway, oh yeah, get over yourself, mate. There can be bad and good in everyone, I have to say, and so stop trying to be virtue signaling. It just gets ridiculous. Super John, Davros wasn't evil until power for his creations that he got obsessed with. Yeah, what I took from it, Super John, was that the Frankenstein plot, which is, yeah, he was ambitious, Dr. Frankenstein. He broke the law, nicked a few bodies and bits and bobs, and then it went to his head, and a bit like in Brain of Morbius as well, when Dr. Morbius. Oh, my brain's gone dead today. You know, Philip Maddox part. He got excited, wasn't he? He said something to Morbius that made Morbius go, "Now I'm going to strangle you now. I'm sorry, you didn't make me. You saved me," should have been what he said. And yes, and Davros has a line in Genesis of the Daleks at the end. I created you. I. And of course, the Daleks thought, "Stuff you, mate." Yes, so I kind of agree with you, Super John. What you were going to show?
Very good point by Dread Newt.
Right, I'll have a look. Let's have a look. I'm trying to find it. What's it say?
Let's go back up.
All right. Just while you find it, I'll just see.
RTD had no problem in 2008 or whenever John Loomis.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I found it as well.
The chat keeps bouncing about, so I can't read it out to you.
Don't worry, I found it as well. I appreciate that. Yes, exactly. Isn't it? But there's a lot of RTD 1 era, and then it's as if RTD 2 is a different man and would argue with himself. I'd rather have some consistency. The world doesn't change in a decade. Get over it. Stephen Braddock, I think we're talking about motor scooters. I work in a supermarket and we have people in motor scooters that look like motorbikes.
Yeah, same Stephen.
I think if RTD had his sense of humor back, he'd have I think he'd have a parody of motor scooters. I think there's something he could do in Doctor Who, but yeah. Eastland Burkholder, Davros went from defense to preemptive defense offense. Davros tried to cheat death, so big themes embedded in that character. And it was good. So, Whoniverse, I agree with you. Remember when we had Sarah Jane Adventures, Torchwood, Class? I kind of wanted Class to have a go, but it kind of just didn't work, did it, Class?
I've never watched Class. I've watched Sarah Jane Adventures, and I thought it was pretty good. I've watched Torchwood, and I thought the second season was amazing, and the rest of it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah, Torchwood. I always saw it as just a kind of an extra. It's a bit like in the 70s, right? When I was watching Doctor Who on Saturday nights, whether it was a good season or not, or a good story or not, I always saw Blake 7 as just an extra to me. I would watch it, but
okay. Don't give me spoilers about Blake 7.
I won't.
I've got the DVD, and I'm going to watch it. I've never watched a single episode. I'm going to watch it for the first time, and I'm going to give my thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's 4 series, and I'm not saying a word. But the thing is, it was always seen as just another program about space, but I didn't ever, Doctor Who was my show. And so when they made Torchwood, even Sarah Jane Adventures, and of course I was tested a bit because I like Sarah Jane, but I still almost see it as a separate universe to a degree, you know. I do. So this Whoniverse idea he's had, I just think yeah, it's very American. It's too smart.
Conformist.
Yeah, and it's too smart ass that, you know, we could commercialize this. We can
Smart
really,
ass is conformist.
yeah.
Commercialize is conformist.
And the Whoniverse, I mean, honestly, just
Well, old conformist. Now we're all about free enterprise again.
my better version of a Whoniverse, and you know, he's supposed to be the creative one, is he's gone kind of sideways like that. I'm going to have offshoots. And I thought, oh, you've missed the point. I think I said on a stream recently, right, you've got the current Doctor, but he can only make 8 episodes a year, apparently. This is because of production. So you have a Paul McGann type Doctor. Yes, one of the classic Doctors. And he does, say, 2 episodes.
Actually, Paul McGann.
Yeah. So there's 2 episodes, say, of a Paul McGann Doctor in a parallel thingamajiggy. You've got 8 episodes with the current Doctor. There's 10 now. Different production teams. We can do it. And then you know, just add another classic Doctor if you want. Whoever will come back. Not Tennant. Done too many. Somebody else. Just a one-off. And you
Not
could literally,
because of the crap that he says in the media, and he turned people off.
yeah. So there you go. So in the end, James, you could have about 14 episodes a year, a mixture of Doctors. If you want to call that the Whoniverse, go for it. But what I call it is just more Doctor Who.
It's not much of a debate when my response is I agree, is it? But you are right. Yeah, that would work.
No, I mean, but we disagree when we think it's worthy. But if we agree, that means that's good. That's 2 generations of Doctor Who fans going, it's worth a go. My question then, James, is why the hell doesn't RTD think of something like that instead of, he thinks it's clever to say, let's have an offshoot, brand new series that's half linked to Doctor
Do
Who.
you want the honest answer to that, Brandon? Of course you do. It's because we've had real jobs, and we've lived with real people, and we've lived real life.
Do you know my most real job was the bouncer of no, it was but no, I agree with you. A lot of us have just normal perspective, and I think if you've been a lovey for too long in the media industry, I think you lose a little bit of that. The power goes to your head. He's turned more into Davros than the
I mean, you referenced Taylor Swift earlier. He's like that, like completely out of touch with what normal people think. Yeah, in an echo chamber, if you like.
Super John, I think, is also unhappy with the war games, and yeah, they spoil old Who. Leave it alone. Don't you dare. Don't bring your editorial decisions to it. And we did.
Yeah, I don't even want to watch the new war games.
No, it's probably best.
I've got the proper one, and I've watched it, and it's good, and I'll watch it again.
Yeah. So, as Adrian says, this is his point. We've replaced equality with favoritism, and it's just more prejudice. Oh, yeah. When you see some people say, oh, I'm very big on this virtue, you only have to look behind them for all the virtues they've ditched. Because you can only put one virtue to the front and then another virtue disappears. It absolute load of nonsense. I mean, I know this having taught, that a lot of the kids, their profiles, because I used to, there were always battles with screenshots at school, you know, bullying and everything. So they ended up showing me screenshots. And when you saw their profiles, you know, they all had be kind, but none of them were being kind at all. I mean, they are, you know, be kind, be kind, be kind. So their profiles were amazing, much better than me. I should have learned so much, but they were all taking the hell out of each other. Yeah. So yes, anyone who tells me their virtues, I go, aye. Now, Action Popcast. Here we go. You've stored up a sore point with me. Why the hell did we have John hurt the War Doctor when they could have used McGann?
Well, no, that wouldn't make any sense.
Go on then.
I mean, no, actually, why wouldn't it have made any sense? Now you've got me thinking.
Action Podcast, how dare you?
McGann could.
Well, if I show you this, because this is what Golden Age Geeks
Right,
said.
okay, right. I've got
Right.
an explanation. They wrote it as Eccleston's Doctor, and production mess at the BBC thought that oh no, we can't just make it the Eighth Doctor. We need to find a new Eighth Doctor and make the Ninth Doctor the 10th Doctor, and blah blah blah. Yeah, I do see a point. I think the reason I was so defensive about it is because John Hurt did such an amazing job.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was a great surprise in the name.
And don't get me wrong, I absolutely loved McGann's short for the 50th. I thought that was brilliant. It made me want to see more of him.
Yes, the Night of the Doctor.
I completely get that point of view as well.
Now, here's Golden Age Geeks' point of view. And I've put this up because this was relevant to what was just said by Action Podcast. Significant changes to canon rarely align with pre-existing law or complement it in a meaningful way. However, Stephen Moffat's decision to reveal that the Doctor had lived an unaccounted-for life between the 8th and 9th Doctors, i.e. the War Doctor, adds greater depth to the 10th Doctor's farewell to his companions and his reluctance to regenerate. It makes far more sense in retrospect, as the 11th Doctor was originally meant to be his final incarnation. 12, yeah. The 10th Doctor may well have feared that he wouldn't get another chance to say goodbye to his friends and loved ones. There you go. We all think about it in detail, don't we? We take it so seriously at this program. I think the trouble is, James, for every John Hurt War Doctor, you then get a fugitive Doctor. You then get another showrunner saying, I think there's a gap there. It's kind of the Big Finish effect onto the TV program. They get the claws in. They're trying to, there isn't a verb, Big Finish eyes Doctor Who, the TV program, by finding gaps. And as soon as they did the War Doctor, which I enjoyed, I'll be honest with you, I liked the idea, but as soon as I've allowed that, they could do it all the time.
Yeah. Finnegate.
So what?
Finnegate. That could be a word.
You're thinking of the verb, aren't you? I know. What do you say? I mean, when you've Big Finish Doctor Who on the TV program, what's the verb, everybody? Because I feel as though they're doing that slowly. Stephen Braddock, Sarah Jane Adventures was excellent. I'm not knocking it. I'm just and I did watch some of them. I'm just a purist. The Mad Woman in the Attic is still disturbing. And some of them I haven't seen. So actually, Stephen, I'll go and have a look because I do have the DVDs. Kez the Drone, they should reveal the Timeless Child is the Master. That's what we were hoping for, wasn't it? That it was just a kind of trick just to kind of stress out the Doctor. Action Popcast coming back here. You can go so deep. They could have had it that Matt Smith's Doctor took on Witherson's regenerations. They make work for themselves. It's timey-wimey. They can do what they want, but just don't do certain things. Yukai 63, Class was easily the worst Doctor Who spin-off. I think I just fancied the main part. I think that was it, really. Diabolically Bad Torchwood wasn't much better. Concentrate on the main show. Forget about other projects. Yukai, or if that's how I can say it, what do you think of my idea that James seemed to like as well, where instead of doing spin-offs, it's all Doctor Who, but different Doctors from different time periods. And then you get more Doctor Who a year, more TARDIS action. Actually, it would introduce the chance to have one of the older companions with the older Doctor for one story. I'm kind of more on that. Okay, then. So I think we've had a really good discussion today, James. I've really enjoyed that, and clearly the thread have. As everybody knows, I'll be back at 11 on Friday with the Aussies in the Detox, and at 7 that night with Rachel on. That was the week that was woke. So please join us on a double bill on Friday. The Sunday show will be live, and then I'm off on it's only a quick holiday with the puppets to Spain, getting run over with all these motor scooters
Nice.
No, and but God, like I said, we've got reviews, we've got discussions, so you won't notice I've gone, or will you? So thank you, James. I've really loved this.
Me too, man.
And that was the Bigenerates this week. So please, everybody, like and subscribe. Click on the notifications. You know the algorithms are all a bit weird nowadays. So please, I've really enjoyed that. You've hung around. You've been very nice to us. And I appreciate that. See you again for the double bill on Friday. And thanks, James.
Thanks, man.